Cardinals baseball weekend. I'm probably dumb. I am dumb. But
No.
I thought, I
You
really
were
did
getting
think.
sucked in like the rest of us.
I really did, though. I'm thinking this Cardinals, and it's one series.
I know.
You lost 2 of 3, but I just felt like there was real momentum, okay? And you're beating good teams. You're beating the Giants a couple times. You have the split with the Cubs before the All-Star break, before the final game was rained out. But then you take 3 of 4 from the Cubs. By the way, we all know they should have taken 4 of 4. You had a ridiculous collapse with the Alex Reyes game. But still, I mean, it took a horrendous collapse to not sweep the Cubs. You go in to Cincinnati. And I have to say, I like this Reds team. I think it's good for baseball, and it's good for the Central Division when the Reds are good. But I still felt like, okay, here we are now. It's late July, and the Reds, a nice story. They're also banged up, by the way. Moustakas has been out.
Oh, yeah,
Castellanos, who has been amazing this year, hasn't played in a while. He's on the IL. If you're a Cardinal fan, you're not going to complain or you're not going to feel bad for any team about injuries when your entire starting rotation is on the injured list. But it felt to me going into the series, this might be one of those series where, okay, we're the Cardinals. We're going to win in the second half like we always do. You're the Reds. You're the fun story. It's time to flip the script. And that was not the case whatsoever with the Reds taking 2 of 3.
Yeah, it was more disappointment. You're right. I was looking forward to that series against the Reds. I thought, you know what? Here's a chance to continue the great momentum that was established. And, yeah, they blew the game against the Cubs. But they rebounded, and they won the next one. And they're like, okay, not fazed by that. That was a brutal loss. Not to mention the next night they lose the lead in the ninth and still find a way to win. You got some momentum. Here's the disappointing thing for me. The Reds were 1-6 coming out of the break going into that series. And I was like, hey, time to jump on the Reds, right? Time to take advantage of them being down. You mentioned all the injuries. They've got a lot of injuries in their bullpen. And I just took a deep sigh because it's like, yeah, the games were close on Saturday and Friday. But you got to win at least one of those games. If you really want to make a run at this thing and get yourself back in the race, winning 1 of 3 on the road against a division opponent, it will not get it done. You got to start going 2 of 3, 3 of 4 every time out to really legitimately get back in this race. And they failed in that opportunity. I hear all the positive vibes from yesterday. Go, wow, look at the outfield. Yeah, that's good for one game. Where were they on Saturday and Friday? Great opportunity on Friday in the 5th inning. Yeah, bases loaded, 1 out. O'Neill and DeYoung coming up against a guy who, was it Manley pitched Friday, I think?
Tyler Mahle?
Yeah, he was having problems. And you're like, okay, now is where you got to jump on this guy and get after him. Both guys struck out. I mean, and it wasn't tricks. He just said, here's a fastball, see if you can hit it. These are supposed to be 2 guys that are middle of your lineup that are going to be run producers for you, and they failed. And that's the difference between getting back in the race and not. And that was a difficult one for me to swallow on Friday. And then Saturday, Castillo was really good, by the way. I mean,
and he's been, if you remember, sorry to interrupt, but Castillo, I looked this up on Saturday. This is a random story, but so Castillo was awful first couple months, like really bad.
Yeah.
If you look up his splits. Randomly, the weekend that we had our child, so we had our baby, gosh, I think it was a Thursday. I should know this. It was June 3rd.
We won't tell anybody you didn't know.
I'm almost positive that was a Thursday. But because you're in the hospital for, I think we were in the hospital till Sunday. So, you have a newborn and you're doing all that, but also there's not really much else to do. My wife is recovering and you have the baby, but I was watching all the Cardinals game. It was the Red Series. And that was when Luis Castillo had a fantastic game. I believe he struck out 11. And I'm looking up his numbers back then. He had been terrible. He had, we're talking ERAs like 6, 7-ish. And basically since that start against the Cardinals, which would have been right around the 1st of June, he's been unbelievable for the last 2 months. And remember, this dude has talent. He's a stud. You want, like, his ball moves. It has life. He's really, really good. It's more surprising that he was so bad to start the year. So sorry to interrupt, but he's been fantastic for 2 months now.
No, you're 100% correct on that. And that's why Saturday's loss, I go, okay, you know what? You tip your cap, that Tony's saying, and you go, they beat us, okay? And their guy was really good. I don't have a problem with that. The Friday night loss is the one that just bugged the heck out of me, because if you really want to get back in a race, that's the one you got to win. And then yesterday, I hear everybody going, see, that's the great outfield we want. See, that's a great. Well, yeah, but the downside for that, what took place yesterday, you had 9 runs scored by that offense, and once again, your starting pitcher couldn't get through 5 innings to get you get him a win, but then save the bullpen. There's no way. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys out of the pen. If you scored 9 runs, you shouldn't need that many guys to come out of the game. When you end up scoring, was it 10 total to win a ball game? And that's what they did yesterday. It was painful to take in that game yesterday, because it was just grinding and grinding and grinding. You're like, really, can anybody throw strikes today? Can anybody, please? And you still, in that game where you were up 9-3 at one point, Charlie, there's no way you should have had to use the law firm yesterday in the
exactly
game, and you had to use them all.
And that's where there's repercussions beyond that game. I know they have an off day, but that's been the story, is the more times you have to use those folks when you shouldn't have to, you're going to lose games down the road, right, because of the usage. And that's why, I hate to say it, but that's where I agreed with Mike Schilt during the big blow-up this past week. Was it Tuesday? Where when you're in a 6-1 game, okay, and I know that particular outing, Luis Garcia, it wasn't his fault. You had pass ball, you had errors, but also in a 6-1 game, if you're in the major leagues as a manager, you should be able to go to almost every single guy in your pen in the 9th and say, finish this out, even if you give up a run.
Yeah.
If you're up 6-1, if you're a big league pitcher, you should be able to close that game out without needing your top 3 relievers. And I will say this, though. The one good thing is, in the last several weeks, for the most part, Andrew Miller and Ryan Helsley are starting to make steps, okay? Make strides there. And I'm talking big picture. I know they've had outings here, and Helsley's been really, really good.
Yeah, Helsley's been
for a while
much better now. He's been good at coming in situations with runners on base and getting out of those. They are helping. It's just that you can't keep using, Well, they signed, who was the guy they took off of somebody's scrap heap yesterday? Tarius, whatever his name.
TJ Zyke?
That's it. Yeah, thank you.
Or Zuch? I don't know how to pronounce it.
He's just another guy that's off a scrap heap. It's like, really? This is what they've resorted to? This is like guy 6 now that they've tried this with? I mean, that puts in perspective how awful it really is right now. They haven't gone out and got a legitimate major league arm.
Wade LeBlanc, come on.
He wasn't even in the majors, and he's been very good. I got to give him. He's been so much better than anyone would have asked. I mean, he has worked out. McFarland hasn't been too bad, but you can't keep getting guys to go, well, they're not really on anybody's major league roster. Well, let's try him. That's no way to run a major league ball club if you want to be competitive and be in even a thought in a wild card race, because right now they're not even a thought.
Okay, so a couple things here. What you mentioned about the outfield, I want to get into that discussion because I think it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do that in a second. Just so you guys have the numbers out there on Luis Castillo. April, March, 6.29 ERA in 5 starts. May, he was 0-6 with an 8.04 ERA in 6 games. In June, which started with that Cardinals start, so the month of June, 2-2 with a 1.71 in 5 starts, 32 Ks in 31 2/3. And then here so far in July, 1-0 with a 1.71 ERA again and 33 strikeouts and 31 2/3 in 5 starts. So he's been unbelievable for 2 months after being absolutely terrible for the first 2 months.
And that's why I wasn't overly concerned about what took place on Saturday, because you're going to face good pitching, and there's going to be days where you just you can't score enough runs. But that's when you get facing good pitching. When you're just facing guys and you're just failing, that's where you go, all right, this is where they need to make up ground, and they're just not doing it.
And the Reds are a good team. They're a fun team to watch. You look at them offensively. Okay, Castellanos was one of the best hitters in the National League this year, and when he comes back, you'd think he's going to get back to that. Mike Moustakas has been banged up. So look at that lineup. Jonathan India is really, really good. He's going to be right up there for the Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
Joey Votto, if you've checked, Joey Votto the last month or two has been basically prime Joey Votto. He's been really, really good. Jesse Winker is one of those players that we're just starting to realize how good he is the last couple years. That's a pretty solid lineup, not to mention somebody like Eugenio Suarez, who somehow still hits 20 homers and bats like 180. I know he can't hit
anymore, apparently.
Right. Which is funny because they started him at shortstop this year.
Right.
But that's if you get all those guys healthy, that is a dangerous lineup, especially in the small park.
That's why I thought they could make a run at the division, because they're the one team in this division that can score runs, right? I mean, Moustakas is going to come back here soon. I think he's out on a rehab assignment this week. They got another guy who's I can't remember, is out on another assignment this week, who's going to come back and help their lineup. Going into Friday, I had this note. I never got a chance to use it. Their top three in their batting order, which for the most part has been India, Winker, Castellanos. They had more hits than any lineup in baseball.
I bet.
Out of that three. And that just puts in perspective how good they've been at the top there and how much they can score runs, especially if Votto starts to churn. And he looked, like you said, just watching him take good at bats, he looked like the old Joey Votto this weekend.
And remember, Tyler Naquin, by the way, has been really, really good. Remember, he was the first-round pick with the Indians, a lot of talent, never really panned out. It's worked here with the Reds. It's funny, and I know I do this too much. I always mention fantasy baseball, but I do have Votto on one of my teams. And was it Saturday, I believe? You remember this. The first at bat, so we're talking first inning. And Joey Votto is one of those guys where he's kind of like Matt Carpenter in the sense where if he doesn't think it's a strike, it's not a strike. And I say that with respect because I think they have such a mastery of the strike zone that they know that that's a ball. Or look, the few times they let one go by,
yep,
they might be mad, but they know it was a strike. I think it was the first pitch of his at-bat was just a ball or two. I think it was inside. And he started fuming. This was the first inning.
He did this Friday night,
right,
too.
So maybe it was Friday.
It might have been both nights, because you're right.
So he started fuming to the point, it was the first pitch he saw of the entire game or series. And I'm like, he's going to get ejected in the first inning before he can give me any fantasy production. That's how I think about these things.
Yeah.
But luckily he calmed down, and he had a really good series. But he was fuming so much based on one pitch that was the first pitch he saw in the whole game. That's how freaking that dude plays with a lot of passion. And I know on the other side of the rivalry, okay, but he makes it fun, right? He chirped the Cardinals when they swept
he did.
them, and I just think that's fun for baseball. Even though the whole Castellanos thing, look, I know it wasn't a great look, and the bench is cleared, and Castellanos flexes over Jake Woodford, but also that's really entertaining. So I think it's fun, it's good when the Reds are good, and they're in the mix, and you can have a fun, competitive series against the Cardinals. One more thing before we get to the outfield situation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're at the point with Johan Oviedo. And yesterday, I will say, he didn't really deserve to win that game. Now, the Tuesday game, where he pitched really well, 74 pitches, he leaves 5+, and that's the game we're talking about with, of course, where the Cardinals bullpen blows it. Alex Reyes, first blown save of his career, and that would have been Johan Oviedo's first career big league win at the time. We're talking about 17, 18 starts. Okay, and they kept showing him, and you could tell he's still in the dugout. He's still engaged. He's still locked in. He wants that win so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And after every run scores, they go back to him, and you can just kind of see the life leave his face a little bit with each run as it gets to be 6-2, 6-3, 6-4, 6-5. And then, so yesterday, he goes 4 1/3. He didn't pitch well. I mean, he walked 6 dudes. He allowed 3 earned runs. But you're also starting to get to a storyline where I feel like 5 years from now, Johan Oviedo, he's going to be on the mound. It's going to be his 97th start. He still doesn't have a win. He's going to have a perfect game through 4 2/3. The Cardinals are up 12-zip. He has 9 strikeouts, and then like an asteroid is going to hit the earth. Like this man, he can't win a baseball game.
Yeah, I thought for sure Tuesday night was going to be his night against the Cubs, and it fell apart. Yesterday, oh my goodness, you can't walk 6 guys in 4 1/3, not to mention give 5 hits to go along with that, and expect to even be in the big leagues much longer. It's starting to feel like, you remember the name Anthony Young?
Mm-hmm.
He lost 27
Mets.
straight at one point. It's starting to get that feel to it to where it's going to be a mental thing. And I think the organization at some point has to do something for his sake personally instead of just keep throwing him out there over and over. You got to just, if it means sending him back and, whatever it takes to give somebody else a shot, you got to do it. You just can't keep running a guy out there, especially when he can't get out of the 5th inning with 9 runs on the board offensively for him. I mean, you can't keep doing that to a kid.
Right. These were games where you penciled in, even if you don't pitch well, which he didn't yesterday. You had such a big lead. And on Tuesday, when he did pitch well, even though he didn't go deep, you had such a big lead. I love when you bring up names like that, because just when you said that, I looked up Anthony Young. Okay, so from 92 to 93. In 1992, he goes 2-14 win-loss record. In 1993, he goes 1-16. Here's what's funny, though. I never would have thought of this. Just take a guess. And I'm leading you this way by the way I'm saying it. But What do you think his ERAs were in those 2 years?
Oh, he wasn't horrible. I want to say he was like upper 3s, 3.7, 3.6.
So this dude, career ERA, by the way, is 3.89.
Okay.
In 1992, he went 2-14 with a 4.17 ERA, which would be a really good ERA.
Yeah, that would be bad.
This year. I mean, his FIP that year was 3.38. That's really, really good, and you can't buy a win. The next year, he goes 1-16, Anthony Young does, in 1993, 3.77 ERA with a 4.07 FIP. But still, those are numbers that should not be 2-14. They should not be 1-16.
No,
he should be about 500.
Yes, absolutely true. So, I mean, it just gets that feel for Oviedo for me right now, where they got to step in and save his confidence, because it's shot. I mean, there's just shot. He had nothing in that game yesterday. And what else can Mike Maddox say to the kid, right? Yeah, you might want to throw some strikes here. Just you know what? I don't care if they hit it out. Just throw strikes. I'm trying. Yeah, I know you're trying, but you really got to throw strikes. You got 9 runs on the board, for crying out loud. You got to get out of this inning. And he just couldn't find a way.
Want to tell folks about Mystery Alumni Nickname Jersey coming up on the 30th here of July. That is Friday. Cardinals hosting the Twins. And that night, 30,000 fans ages 16 and older will take home a Mystery Alumni Nickname Jersey, courtesy of Maryville University, one of our fine sponsors here on 590 The Fan, and 590thefan.com with the press box, of course. Fans won't know which one they will get until they walk through the gates. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/promotion. So we're talking a nice red Cardinals pullover jersey. So a little bit of that 80s look, but not exactly. You got the nice Maryville logo on the sleeve, but you got either the man, of course. It says the man, number 6. It says Gibby, number 45. It says the Wizard, number 1, and Big Mac, number 25. So that's nice. Mystery Alumni Nickname Jersey coming up this Friday versus the Twins. Get your text in, 855-282-8255. All right, let's talk about that outfield. Because what I think is potentially fascinating about this is, for all that we've complained, with good reason, the last, let's just say, 2 years. And I'm saying this because of really kind of the elevation of Randy Arozarena last year in the postseason. And then the first half, even though he's fallen off, but Adolis Garcia with the Rangers. And I'm not going to bring up every single guy. Like Patrick Wisdom, he's been a nice story for a couple months, but he didn't hit with the Rangers. He didn't hit at the beginning with the Cubs. He's been really good this year. By the way, my buddy is a hitting instructor in the Cubs organization, and he takes full credit, he says, for turning Patrick Wisdom into a 600 slugger. They were working a lot at the alternate site last year. I say that jokingly. I think he actually does believe that he's the one that turned him around. But no, what I think is interesting is as you've seen Tyler O'Neill turn the corner this year, and I know he's also fallen off a little bit lately, but then, man, Harrison Bader is just on fire right now. And wouldn't it be funny / ironic, and we'd all, let's be real, we're all going to potentially have to eat our hats. If 2-3 years from now, if we look back and say, you know what, after all of our complaining, and it did take a while. It took a while with somebody like Tyler O'Neill, right? It took a while, and health with somebody like Harrison Bader. But what if a couple years from now we look at what Randy Arozarena, what he's done, what Adolis Garcia has done, and we look at what we're seeing right now with Tyler O'Neill and Harrison Bader and say, man, they actually chose the right two outfielders, even though it took longer than we all wanted.
Yeah,
that's in play.
That is in play right now. Wow, I never thought of it that. No, I don't think anybody's ever thought of it that way. But there is some truth in that if they continue to trend upward as they are, especially Bader. Last year, and I know we throw a lot of what took place last year out, but when you watched Harrison Bader hit, and he'd get 3 pitches and he'd swing at every one of them away in the dirt, you're like, this guy has no chance to stay and be productive in the major leagues because the discipline wasn't there. And for whatever reason, the discipline's there. He's actually hitting the breaking ball now. He's being productive. His average is up to 289 right now. 289, if anyone said, hey, Harrison Bader's going to be batting 289 at the end of July, you're going to go, what? He's going to be an all-star. Now, he's not an all-star, and yeah, he's been hurt, but those are numbers that you can more than live with and say that's a productive center fielder for you. Same for Tyler O'Neill. He's got his next step for me for Tyler is to prove he can stay healthy for a whole month. Now, he's had some goofy things happen to him this year. I mean, when you get hit on the hand, you get hit on the hand. But you still need to see him stay healthy for one whole month of baseball without taking any ouchies, and because he also is getting better and better. And he's going to just – the one thing you're going to have to live with him, he is going to strike out, but he is getting much better at being able to hit the ball to all fields, which is something we cried for and yelled for. You got to give these guys credit. You really do.
And that's where, with both of these guys, they always had a high – now they have high ceilings, but they also have high floors because they're both really athletic and they're really good defensively. So we were waiting on them to figure it out offensively. I've always thought that, and maybe I gauge too much on social media, but I don't know if hate's the right word, but the critiques of Harrison Bader was always greater than what he actually brought to the table, meaning people were more critical of him than they should be. Even when he was at his lowest, he's still a Gold Glove caliber defender, an amazing base runner, and he was trying to end. And by the way, even at his worst, he's really good against lefties. But now he's figuring it out overall. And you mentioned his totals, but look at July. Since he's come off the injured list, 362 batting average, 421 on base, 609 slug for a 1,030 OPS. Now, I don't expect that to continue at that rate. It'll be impossible. But he's been really, really good. You read the Jeff Jones story about him removing the polyps from kind of his nasal passages, which have cleared up the fact that he no longer has watery eyes. He's able to see the baseball. So look at this year. Yeah, it's only 41 games. It's a quarter of the season. He has to stay healthy. But he's 289 average, 358 on base, 507 slug for a 140 OPS. He's 40% better than the average player offensively. Remember, he already brings the great defense and the base running. He has 5 stolen bases, and he could steal more bases, by the way. That hasn't even been really utilized the last month or so, but he's potentially a 25-30 stolen base guy. So I read those numbers because, all right, let's look at Tyler O'Neill. So I just mentioned Harrison Bader this year. It's a small sample size. He needs to stay healthy, 100%. But 866 OPS, 140 OPS plus. Tyler O'Neill, he's played about a half a season, 78 games. He's got an 857 OPS. He's got a 136 OPS plus. Tyler O'Neill has 17 home runs. Remember, this guy, he can run. He won the Gold Glove, even though last year was odd with COVID, but still, he is a plus defender. So remember those stats. We're talking 140 OPS plus for Bader, 136 OPS plus for Tyler O'Neill. How about Randy Arozarena? Randy Arozarena, as I bring up his page, he is, this year, a 751 OPS, a 114 OPS plus. Was he absolutely amazing last year? Yes, especially in the postseason. But again, we could be looking a couple years from now and saying, despite all the craziness, and we're all saying these guys are idiots, and how can you let these guys go? There is a chance still, and it's a good chance, honestly, if they stay healthy, that they could have made the right decisions in holding on to Bader and O'Neill. Look at Odalis Garcia. Let's see. He is 790 OPS and 114 OPS plus. So those guys have both come back to earth, especially Adolis Garcia. He was an all-star, but he was amazing the first couple months of the season. But right now, even though those guys have been banged up in Harrison Bader and Tyler O'Neill, they are both this year performing much better, actually, much better than Randy Rosarena and Adolis Garcia. And we made a ton of hullabaloo on TV, on radio, in print, saying how dumb the Cardinals were to get rid of those guys. And let's be fair, when these guys now are starting to come back to earth, and the Cardinals outfitters that they chose, even though it's taken them a while to develop, they right now are surging.
Sounds like Charlie just sat me in the corner and pointed his finger. Now give credit where credit's due.
Well, no, I did it too.
I know.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm joking with you, but you're right. You got to give these guys credit. Will they continue is what I want to see, right? I mean,
that's the question.
But the numbers as they sit now, you go, right choices were made with those particular four that we're referenced to. And as great as a Rosarena was, everybody knows that was coming back to earth.
He couldn't stay at that level. That was Babe Ruth. He was Babe Ruth for 1 October.
Yeah.
That happens. We've seen that with, who was the Giants player the one year? Was it Cody? There was, Marco Scudero had an October where he was unbelievable.
So
Pablo Sandoval. I feel like it's all Giants players.
They've done pretty well by themselves. And by the way, they're still in first place, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
They keep winning. You're right about the Cardinals, though, in the outfield.
Cody Ross, sorry.
That's it. Good call. Good call on that one. I forgot that. It was in my brain, and I couldn't spit it out. So
we're getting older.
Yes, we are.
But also, as we have this conversation, they have to keep it going. So they have to stay healthy. And Harrison Bader, he has had a fantastic month. And now he needs to have 2 more. And then these guys, they need to have seasons where everybody's going to get banged up. And you look at the way those guys play, they play the game hard. Tyler O'Neill crashes into the wall. Harrison Bader runs the bases aggressively. Harrison Bader makes diving catches. They're probably not going to play 162 in every year, but you got to start playing about 140.
Yeah.
They got to do this for full seasons.
The defense has been fantastic, by the way. I mean, it's hard to find a better outfield in baseball defensively right now, I think. There's some good ones out there, but this will play with anybody's outfield in baseball right now. I mean, they're just making plays left and right. But Carlson threw the guy out the other day. It was like, nope, don't run on me. I'm not as excited about Bader's arm as most because I think he throws it, but he's still a plus outfielder. Plays he's making out there are fantastic.
Yeah, and Dylan Carlson has a really strong and a really accurate arm.
Yes.
Teams are going to stop running on him.
You think so?
Because he's throwing just about everybody out.